All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Smirking Gun. This is Rob here. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. If you like what we're doing here, make sure you're hitting like and subscribe. Get that out of the way right now because we got a lot to talk about. Because today we're talking about my first D&D campaign's second session that we had Tuesday. On, and this was a completely different experience than the last one. I was nervous as hell. The first time I was really unsure of myself, and I was still a little unsure of myself in this, and I'm still learning, and I'm not some Mister, you know, ultra overconfident already, but I leaps and bounds, folks. It's leaps and bounds, and it's like anything. I always tell people like the hard part for me is just getting is once I do something, it's a million times easier the next time usually. If it's basically finding my comfort. If I've done it and I feel comfortable, I feel good about coming back or doing something or trying something again or talking to someone, like that's a huge thing, talking to someone for me. And if I start feeling uncomfortable around somebody, that ends. That uncomfortability ends until reason not to. And so I felt way more comfortable going into this second session. We were down a couple of players. We were down. Trail in the. I better grab my stuff. Yeah, we were down a couple of players. We were down. Trail in the Woods was not there. The Tabaxi, and we were also short Morspit, the half elf. So this week it was Ziggy, the half elf warlock, Gemdo, the dwarf, Rennick, the human adjacent fighter, and his wolf Otek. And then me, my little halfling rogue self that doesn't have a name. My nickname as of right now is Wispy, even though that's not really my name. We're just going with it. So in the last session, okay, I rolled my first roll of my life in a game, and it was a natural 20. Let me tell you something, folks. Something just as crazy happened in this game. Okay, so last we left off, we had been investigating. Our little troop had been investigating these statues for this guy named Dorcas Malorcus, which is his name was Dorcas. We gave him the oh my god, you're not gonna believe this, but my PlayStation just heard me say my controller was positioned to where the microphone was on, and it heard me say Dorcas Malorcus, and it literally looked up on YouTube Dorcas Malorcus, and the first three things that came up were a clip from The Simpsons. Okay, well, we call him Dorcas Malorcus now, and we went there and didn't go well for him. He decided to stay behind because there was a talking shroud, something under this shroud that was telling us to help it, let it loose, but something else in our heads was saying don't let it out. Probably why there were so many things to kill you before you got in and figured out these puzzles. I don't know. But we didn't check it out. We left the guy there. We went back. So where we start is we're back at Rebo's recruitment center for the Salt Marsh. And we're there to tell old Rebo what happened. And basically that the guy's probably dead. And that we were told we weren't going to be able to get the other half of our money. Well, for my character who desperately wants as much money as he can to keep moving on down the road as fast as possible, this did not sit well with me. And it didn't sit well with everybody else either. And it didn't sit well with us even more when we were told that we should go tell the widow about the fact that he's not coming back. Meanwhile, in the recruitment center, there was a tiefling named Poetry who was there as training another group of adventurers who were all tieflings. I can see that I could tell that unless he was being sarcastic, our warlock named Ziggy, did not like tieflings too much. Um, my character was a little curious about them. Meanwhile, Gemdo the dwarf decided to file a complaint against Rebo for the last, basically an HR report about the problem with the last job and how like it was. I believe it was his way of trying to get money that we were owed since we weren't getting any. Um, I, on the other hand, have been trying to slowly start to open up about my character with by what I'm doing in the game for the other players and those characters as well. And I go up to our receptionist at this place, the assistant, whatever she is at the Rebo Recruitment Center. Apparently, she's the one who knows, like, gets a lot of stuff done. And I asked her to make sure that if anybody comes looking for me, that I know about it first, or that how about we just you guys have never seen me before, because technically they kind of have a policy anyway of like we don't know who works for us. We're not going to be giving out that kind of information. But I still gave her a little bit of gold. I think I just gave her a gold piece or something. Like a little tip. Like, hey, who doesn't want a little gold just for a little? Like, I asked you a question, you helped me out here. I wanted to kind of make sure that this person's like, hey, he's all right. Like I didn't help him, but he appreciated it enough to give me a little something on the side that he didn't have to, even if one gold isn't that big a deal. But to some people, one gold's probably a lot. You just never know. I think it's the more like like the meaning behind the money more than anything. So we go to find the widow, and she's telling us that she's not paying us. And she wants to know where her husband's body is, but we don't have a body because when we went down there, all we had was his stuff. And they own, her and her husband own a jewelry store. So I'm assuming that I guess this guy was, he when he was out adventuring before he hired us, he thought that this place that we found where the statues were, that he would be able to get something out of this, some stuff for his jewelry store. Well, I'm already asking, like, can I see into this place, or does she have, like, it kind of closed off, which she does. But after we tell her about this, she's like, oh, this isn't the first time that he's died. One of the purposes of their jewelry store, it seems, is to have diamonds on hand so that the adventuring, when it kills her husband, she's able to bring him back. Except this time, we don't have a body to bring her because there was no body to be found. Well, while they are going to the jewelry store to talk about this, I decide to go back and case the joint because my character is not having the fact that we're not getting paid. She doesn't seem to have any intention of paying us. I'm looking for ways inside her house, even though it's during the day. I just look around to see how easily accessed this house could be if we wanted to get in and maybe find either ways to get into the jewelry store or just to kind of like see what kind of valuables that she has. I'm that desperate. Okay. My character is that desperate. And he ends up just going back to meet them at the recruitment center. Meanwhile, they go to the jewelry store, and that's where they find out about all the whole diamond thing. Well, we get back to the recruitment center, and I also we decide to take on the job eventually. Eventually, to take on the second job that we were going to take, where it was to go to a cave with and help this gnome named Tin Pick. Let me write this down. Let's see if I got the paper here. Should have it here. The description of what was going on this week. Yes, Tinkin Copperskin. He's a copperskin gnome who wanted to go out to a cave that nobody really had claimed right now and basically get the mining rights for this place. And it would really be some kind of benefit, I believe, also to the recruitment center. After a lot of negotiating on why, what, and wherefores of what the job is, and especially since we hadn't gotten fully paid for the last job, we were kind of making sure what the actual parameters of this job was, which was in fact taken by another adventuring group. Tin Pitkin hired the other adventuring group who, at the time that they went on their adventure, were all like stinking drunk, like couldn't hardly stand. There were some dwarves, 3 dwarves and a human that went with Tinkin out to this cave. And now Rebo's asking us to go find out, basically his interest is in the mine and they haven't come back and he wants us to find them and see what's up. That is the parameters that we like for the mission that we chose. So our only obligation is to find out what happened, find these people, find out what their deal is. If they are dead, try to get them back. If they're under siege, try to get back, like bring their bodies back, whatever. So we go out finally looking for this group. We have to rest though. It's 2 days journey, and we also had a big old discussion about like, are we even going to take a cart? Do we need horses? Blah blah blah. Well, I don't need a horse because I decide to make friends with Rennick's wolf Otek. I ask him, like, hey, like, is the wolf friendly? Can I pet it? Blah blah blah. Do you think your wolf would mind if I rode it? And it's a dire wolf, and it already apparently comes with stuff to ride on it. So I'm riding a wolf. So I don't need to be on a cart or nothing. I hardly weigh anything, I imagine. And so riding a wolf also, I believe, will help my movement because I have like 25 movement. But if I'm on a wolf to get to places where I need to go, or in like an action situation too, that would probably help me out a lot. So I also take Rennick aside before we go on this job, and I say, like, how satisfied are you with our circumstances as they are? We haven't been paid, and we're going off to a mine where we might be finding just dead bodies. And we find out from Rebo that technically and I'm not sure if this is with Rebo or with our actual DM, but we could actually finders keepers get this mine for ourselves. This puts the idea in my character's head to talk to Rennick because he seems to be the most receptive to getting paid, figuring out how we get paid, and maybe not being so worried about how we get paid and the reasons and whatever that we got to be paid. I wasn't sure about Gemdo, the dwarf, yet, even though he was fighting really hard with Rebo in HR situation to get money. Talking about it like in a kind of professional business or like sense didn't necessarily track that he would be on board with a little bit more intense ways to get money. And I wasn't going to talk to Ziggy about it because he's like the guy who puts out permits. He lives in this town. He has to work with these people. I'm not going to suddenly start suggesting that we do anything little ne'er do well to possibly get this mine for ourselves. And by ourselves, I mean like all of us. I would like, because what I tell Rennick, and I make sure that nobody else hears other than his wolf who's there to hear, is that Rennick, I tell him like, hey, I know, look, I've been in the situation around mining towns. I know about mines, and more than that, I have the contacts that would be able to, if we were to develop this, if this mine were to become ours, I know who to talk to about who we would sell our whatever we get from this mine to these people. So Rennick is immediately like, oh shit, all right, like he's got a guy who now he knows how to like be around mines and what to like look for and stuff. Just future ideas. But I don't tell anybody else this. We go off on our own. We have to rest. And this is where the crazy thing happened. Uh, we take a long rest. We have we break off into 2 groups to see who's going to do it. And I'm asked to roll perception, and I roll a natural 1. I roll a natural 1. I was like, oh, but I forgot. I'm lucky. As a halfling, I get to re-roll ability checks, and so I re-rolled it, and it was a natural 20. So two natural 20s in 2 sessions, and one of them coming off of a natural one. It was just perfect. I don't even deserve this, folks. It's like one of those things where I'm like, if it happened to anybody else, I'd call them a liar. But I have a room full of people that like saw it, so I didn't take a picture this time. I should have. But I got a natural 20, and that natural 20 told me that there were 4 wolves moving in around our group. And that high perception check helped me know that we were getting wolves, and that me and Gemdo, who was awake, he was able to cast a sleep spell on 2 of the wolves, knocking them out. I managed to get on Otek, the wolf, which caused us to have to go into our very first initiative where we go into battle. Uh, Rennick and Ziggy were asleep and then surprised, so they didn't get around really in anything. My first attempt, the wolves moved in, but they didn't get a move because they had to kind of dash to us. I tried to shoot one of the wolves with sneak attack because it got up against Ziggy, and I missed. Meanwhile, the second wolf got up to Otek, the wolf that I'm riding on, and it was afraid of Otek and didn't attack him. So it decided to attack me because I was the one who fired the arrow. I did already turn into what I've yelled at the TV about, and I said this already to the DM the next day or next day or so, where we were talking about. I was like, dude, I turned into like the negotiator. It's like, why would this wolf attack me? Like, if it's a, and I guess I should have argued this because I kind of was like, well, I'm on the wolf. I even thought about like saying something about like, why would it jump up and try to attack me past the dire wolf it's afraid of? And I should have thought about the actual fear aspect of it. That if this thing was afraid, why would it move close? How would it be able to move closer to what it's afraid of if I'm on it? But it was just happening, and I took 5 points of damage, which was half of my hit points at the time. Um, then Otek the wolf proceeded to just kill that wolf on his turn, and then on my turn, I got my sneak attack worked. I rolled a dirty 20 and killed the other wolf. Then I proceeded to run over on Otek and kill the other 2 wolves that were asleep still because even though combat was technically over because they were asleep, we still ran over there and took them out. And that was the only initiative that we got into. It was a lot of fun seeing actual combat and how we do it. It was really, really fun. The next day, we ended up at the mine where we find copper. I got to cut. Yeah, its name is so weird to say. Tinkin Copperskin is kind of like pinned under a boulder. He's dying. Now, basically, it seemed like he needed to just be, if we weren't going to heal him, we needed to put him out of his misery. But Reddick got something and pulled the boulder off of him. I, meanwhile, was just, if they hadn't moved fast enough, I was getting ready to kill this guy, put him out of his misery. See how my character sees it is this is a problem. He's also in the way of, if he's not around, and he's dying anyway, we could get that mine if he's gone. Like we just, but I held back. I didn't tell this to the characters at the time or the players at the time. I mean, I told the DM again because I see him a lot. I was like, dude, my character is like really trying not to be a murder hobo, but like his instincts that he's the way he's been taught and everything, and what his job is, or what he's experienced and what he knows how to do is solve these kind of problems. And he's trying to let other people come up with a solution that's non-violent. But if push comes to shove, I was gonna kill that guy, um, and put him out of his misery, so that A, put him out of his misery if he's in pain and suffering and gonna die, and B, because I want his mind and I want money. I want money so I can escape. I can keep running. But we get him up, and he's blind, and we throw some water in his eyes, and that doesn't cure it. And we set his wound. We don't heal him. We set his wound. I love this. Everybody else would be like, "Hey," we even talked about healing him, and for some reason we didn't. At least I don't think we did. I think maybe we gave him 3 hit points. I'm not sure. But he talks about how there's a bunch of traps collapsed in on all these people, and he's the only one who made it out, and that he was helped by a goblin. So we managed to go in. We kind of follow his directions, and right away, there's like 3 intersections we can go to. We go into the right intersection. We start making our way around through the place, and we come upon like 3 statues of dwarves that had been turned to stone. We knew this by knocking one of them over. Didn't break it or anything, I don't think. But we see that they've been turned to stone. In the corner of the room is an overturned minecart on a lift and something underneath it. What we find when we do a perception check is it's the goblin that was helping Tinkin out, that had helped him get out. And his name is Hug Hug. All he really can say is Hug Hug and certain little words. But he tells us we can't go down. I was excited about going down the lift, but Hug Hug was waving his arms like danger, Will Robinson, danger. And so we didn't go down there. We also started hearing some clucking that probably sounded like we were going to end up on some cockatrices, which I was freaking stoked to do. I really wanted to go down that mine cart, but again, we weren't going to be that dumb. We had also already come across all the bodies of the people, like the 3 dwarves that were down there. We believe that those were the ones that were hired to come with. I think they were the ones that were hired as the adventurers. I'm not sure if they were out in the end, but I think the human we found dead out in the main, kind of near the main entrance. We decided we were just going to go take Tinkin, get him back to Rebo's, get our money, and hopefully level up, which we ended up not doing. We didn't level up. I was hoping we would, but we just didn't get there. But on our way out, there was a rune that popped up as we passed it. So on the way in, there was nothing, but on the way out, there was a rune. It got triggered by Rennick going over it, and it triggered a cave in at the front, which again, we could have gone further in if they had come up with a reasonable reason for us to go down there. I was willing to go, but I also know that I have 10 hit points and there's apparently cultists in there. And we also know that this isn't really a mine at this point because with all the traps and everything else, we see that the equipment that's in the mine is actually really, really old, and that this place hasn't been used as a mine for a while, and that what this place really is a hangout and a trap for cultists and probably just to take your shit. But Hug Hug really wanted us to stay. So we're not quite sure what to do about this. In the meantime, we dig our way out. Plus, I figured if we dig our way out and go back, we can always come back to this place and see what's up. Maybe have some better equipment. I'm not sure. But we end up going back to Rebo's and telling them what happened. I also punched Tin Kin in the face because he's blind and he can't see that I did it. My character was very frustrated about not getting paid twice now and almost getting killed in this place. I'm frustrated and nobody saw it anyway. The characters are I guess they don't really know what to make of me, but my character is pretty damaged and pretty frustrated, and he does take it out on Tinkin because he was going to kill him. So he's like, well, I didn't kill this guy, but I am going to punch him in the face for my trouble for coming all the way out here for nothing. And that's basically where we leave it for this week. We go back, and the other 2 adventurers that weren't in our party had something to do with Rebo. And we'll find out maybe what happened. Like, they're going to get filled in on what their mission was by the DM separately. How that all comes about, we'll see. We still have not dealt with anything that has to do with the note that got passed to me. I'm not 100% if we even talked about that in the first one, but yes, I was passed a note in that perception check that was the natural 20. I'm not going to say what's in the note, but it's pretty cool. If I told you already, then I'll shut up anyway. I'll know when I double check this. But that is the end of session 2. We are going to be back next Tuesday. I think everybody's going to be at the table. I am really excited where we're going with all this, and we will keep doing these little recaps as long as I enjoyed doing them. So thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll be back with session 3 next week. Bye.